Talk about cornering the market. Whether you love or hate puzzle toys, this episode's for you.
Don't you know that you're a grown up? No games, no puns. Not allowed if you're a grown up.
Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John. I am a GenXGrownUp. Thank you for checking out this video and the channel. You know, growing up as a Gen Xer, I absolutely love twisty puzzle games, cubes and pyramids and whatever they might be. All of those sorts of puzzles came about during the early 80s. I was in middle school, very nerdy kid, you probably couldn't have guessed that. But I made it a point to learn how to solve all those. And in fact, that was my claim to fame for many years. I was the kid who knew how to solve those puzzle cubes. If you stick around all the way to the end of the video, I'm going to share with you the top rookie mistakes that are stopping you from being able to solve the Rubiks Cube. Now, I'm no speed cuber, I don't do it like competitively or for time. I find solving these puzzles very, very zen. In this episode, then, I'm gonna run down the top 5 puzzle toys of Generation X. Before we get started, if this is your first time watching GenXGrownUp, see the little bar that lifts? It's got a subscription button and a notification bell in the corner. Give both of those a click and you can check out way more of our cool Gen X inspired content. All right, let's get going then with number 5, the missing link. The missing link came out in 1981. It was invented by Stephen Hansen and Jeffrey Breslow. The missing link has 4 sides, and each side has a chain of a different color. Each side contains 4 tiles, except for one, which contains 3 tiles and a gap. And of course, the objective is to scramble the tiles, then restore them to their original configuration. The real gotcha is that middle row that can't be rotated. To move tiles in and out of these rows, you've got to drop them down into the gap, rotate the top or the bottom, and then slide them back up into the 2 middle rows. I always loved Missing Link, especially the small versions you can put on a keychain. It's not terribly challenging, but even today, it's a lot of fun. Moving right along then to my number 4 pick for the top Gen X puzzle toy, and that is, of course, the Rubik Snake. Also invented by Erno Rubik and released in 1981. The Rubik Snake. Sometimes called Rubik's Twist or Rubik's Transformable Snake Puzzle. It consists of 24 wedges at right isosceles triangular prisms and are attached with spring bolts. Though part of the puzzle toy category, Rubik's Snake is way more toy than it is puzzle. It can be twisted and made to resemble a wide variety of objects, animals, or geometric shapes. Rubik himself is quoted as saying, "The snake is not a problem to be solved." And that's exactly how I always looked at it. If there's any puzzle to it at all, it's really just how to get it back into that original sphere shape, and even that is not too much of a challenge. Up next, my number 3 pick for the top Gen X puzzle toy, and that is Rubiks Revenge, also known as the Master Cube, the 4x4x4 version of the 3x3x3 Rubiks Cube. And though it's called the Rubiks Revenge, it was actually invented by Peter Sebasteny, and it was nearly called the Sebasteny Cube until a somewhat last-minute decision to change the name and capitalize on fans of the original Rubiks Cube. What I've always loved so much about Rubiks Revenge is that it's a 4x4 cube with an even number on each side, and that means there's no middle. You have to actually assemble the middles out of 4 pieces. So rather than just matching a color, you have to deduce which side needs to be which color. If you don't do that right, you can end up in an unsolvable state and have to backtrack. Even though the Rubiks Revenge is a riff off the original Rubik's Cube, I always loved it for the original challenge it introduced. And if you go looking around today, you'll see there are scores of riffs on the original cube, be it shape or size or dimension or even warped twisted shapes. And you can trace that all the way back to this first variation on a theme, the Rubiks Revenge. Just a couple left. I'm up to my number 2 pick for the top Gen X puzzle toy, and it's gonna be the Pyramix, released in 1981 but invented in 1970 by Uwe Meffert. It is a regular tetrahedron with 4 axial pieces, 6 edge pieces, and 4 tips. The object is, obviously, to scramble it and then solve it. The Pyramix is actually deceptively simple. I did a whole video about the Pyramix during our A to Z Toys of Generation X, and I'll throw a link to that up there in the corner if you'd like to learn more. Because the tips don't move, they just rotate in place, what you're left with is kind of a 4-sided Rubik's Cube. And because any turn only affects 3 sides and not all 4, it just takes a little bit of 3-dimensional thinking to figure it out even without having to look it up online. Here we are then, it's time for the least surprising number 1 pick in the history of all top 5 lists in the history of ever. My number 1 favorite Gen X puzzle toy is, of course, the Rubik's Cube. Erno Rubik. When he was working at the Department of Interior Design at the Academy of Applied Arts and Crafts in Budapest, he initially designed this cube as a tool to help solve the structural problem of moving parts independently without the entire mechanism falling apart. He didn't realize he'd created a puzzle at all until the first time he scrambled it, and then he tried to restore it. Rubiks Cube is widely considered to be the world's best-selling toy, and like the Pyramix, I did a full video about it during our A to Z series, and I'll put a link to that one up in the corner as well for you to click on. As a toy, the Rubiks Cube seems simple enough, but if you do the math, there are over 43 quintillion states that it can be in. And I know that sounds daunting, but the reality is solving the Rubiks Cube is just a matter of pattern recognition, three-dimensional thinking, and a little memorization. I think that's probably why I love it so much, and probably part of why millions of other people across the world love it as well. That's my top 5 list of the best puzzle toys from Generation X. I promise you, if you stuck it out to the end, I would share with you the common rookie mistakes that are stopping you from solving the Rubiks Cube. So here we go. The main thing that most people get wrong when solving the cube, and I hear it all the time, is they say, I can get 1 or 2 sides, but then I'm stuck. You've got to stop thinking about the cube in terms of sides and think of it in terms of slices, horizontal slices. And what you want to do is consider getting a full slice done before you worry about any other sides. I'll use blue as the center here. The first thing you need to do is get this cross, blue, top to bottom, left to right. And you have to not only match the top and the bottom, but make sure that they match the side. So this blue here, and it goes down and matches the white in this corner. So you first get all 4 of these crosses. So here's our blue cross, and each of them matches not only the top, but down the side as well. The next is to get these corners in place. Now don't worry if you're not able to follow exactly what I'm doing. I will put links down in the description where you can find out what these algorithms are and learn them in slow motion if you want to. Boom. So what I actually have is not just one face, but I have a whole layer. So you can see the sides all match in addition to the top. This middle layer here, that's what you have to worry about. And since the middles are done, I'm really just doing these edge pieces. So I find the edge. In this case, I want to find the one that's red and yellow to match here. I find it here, and I put it up into place with one of those little algorithms that I talked about. There we go. So now I have 2 full layers done. We're not thinking about sides, we are thinking about layers. Now we're down to the last layer. This is when it comes to pattern recognition. I just recognize there's a few shapes that it could be. I turn it in the right position and I do an algorithm to eventually get my T back. Just like the top, we want to get back to a T here, and there's our T. Great. The next thing we do is make sure they're aligned all the way down. There's 2 of them. We need to get these red and yellow ones swapped, and I have an algorithm that does that as well. So now you see my T is perfect. It matches on all edges. The last thing to do is these corners, very, very close. We're almost done now. So we just have a few corners to align. So I have what is really a repetitious algorithm. This is my favorite part of solving the cube because it looks like I'm working really fast, but I'm really mindlessly doing the same thing over and over until it kind of falls into place. I turn once more, and here comes the last piece. Boom, boom, boom. And that's it. If this little cube has ever left you perplexed, I'm confident that with those tips and some links I'll put down in the description below, you'll get over the hump and be solving in no time. Hey, I really hope you found something in this video to enjoy, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye. GenXGrownUp is dedicated to bringing you new Generation X inspired videos every week. Here are a couple more you can watch right now, but for even more, subscribe and enable those notifications. And if you love what we do, we invite you to support us over on Patreon. And of course, your feedback in the comments and a quick thumbs up are always appreciated.